Hello and welcome back to Control Alt Defense, India's #1 podcast on all things defense and aerospace. Vishnu, how does it feel to have me back after?
Yeah, exactly right. You missed the last two episodes. You were a Sulk Hogan over here in the studio, working away while Pallav Bhagla and I had a great deal of fun at HAL. And we spoke about Tejas, and we also spoke about AMCA, which is our stealth program.
Yeah.
And we're talking about stealth planes today.
Amazing couple of podcasts, even though I was quite sad not to be part of them, but I had to be here in Delhi while Vishnu was jet setting across the country to get us those incredible interviews. You'll see them on the Control Alt Defense playlist. The previous episode on the AMCA and the one before that on the Tejas. Incredible. And allow me to say this myself, because these are interviews that you will not see anywhere else on the Tejas and the AMCA, which is everyone's favorite topic anyway. But also, since it had Vishnu and Pallav, you've got questions that nobody else thinks of asking and answers that we didn't expect actually coming in from the top. Yeah. So the guys who are actually running these programs, talking about these two programs was incredible. So if you haven't watched them, they're already the most watched episodes. Please go and watch them. They're right there in the show notes and the playlist. Vishnu, yes, we're still talking about stealth aircraft, and I'm very happy to be back on this podcast of ours. On a topic that is very dear to me, but it's become so controversial. Like, what the hell? Suddenly, everyone is talking about this stopgap of Su-57s. By the way, Vishnu and I have talked about the Russian Su-57 stealth fighter for a while now. I think 2-3 episodes we've mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's come up again. Now it's no longer a rumor. It's no longer a speculation. Apparently, it's actually on the table that India might actually look at a stopgap arrangement of buying or, assembling a handful of squadrons of these jets because we don't have stealth aircraft and China and Pakistan do.
So it cannot be a very small number. We are, of course, talking about the Su-57. Yeah. It's called the Felon by NATO, which is a pretty cool sounding name, if you ask me. It's hands down the best looking stealth fighter out there. Yeah. So that's out of the, if it were looks and we were buying planes for looks, then this wins. But since it tends to be a little bit more than that, can I just say that in my book, this is a suboptimal choice. It's driven by the fact that #1, AMCA is late. In fact, it's nowhere around the corner. It's going to take 2035, 2036 before it's going to be in a state where the Air Force is told, here's the finished product, please buy it. We are not going to get the American F-35 for several reasons, not least of all because we operate the S-400 system. The S-400 system knocked out the Pakistan Air Force during Op Sindoor. America earlier on said that, they could impose CATSA sanctions against India for operation of the S-400. We said, oh, really? Well, you know what? We're going to keep operating it. Yeah. And so we did. And so there's no change in American perspective. The Americans don't want the S-400 system's radars to get a sniff of the minuscule radar signature
of the
F-35, which they feel might somehow or the other make its way to Moscow. But look, we aren't giving up on the S-400. We are buying more of them most likely. We aren't going to get into the F-35 at this juncture, despite the fact that it's a great plane. I mean, lots of technical issues, maintenance issues, the number of hours that it's actually up in the air compared to the downtime on the ground, that is a concern. So that's out of the window for the moment. Despite the fact that as an integrated weapons package, it's absolutely phenomenal.
No, but
this is all we have left.
Let's talk about the Su-57 for a minute and then come to the F-35 a little later, because the Su-57, unlike the F-35, Vishnu, is on the table literally. The Russians have been blasting about it for many months now. Post-Operation Sindoor, it's become even more of a sort of imperative.
They told us, go make it in India.
You've got President Putin headed to India in December this year. As we record this today, the Indian Air Force Chief's press conference has just gotten over, where he has confirmed that India is going to be buying more S-400s, which is something you reported first. So it stands to reason that the Russians believe that this is the right time to push the Su-57, because India has this stealth gap. Like we've said multiple times before, the Chinese already have, one stealth fighter, another one coming online very soon. The Pakistanis are going to get theirs. So there is a gap for sure. And the easiest ones to fill it are going to be the Russians if we are going to exercise that option. That is what the Russians that is what explains why the Russians are pushing it so hard.
I'm going to answer this question, but just for the benefit of our viewers, when we're talking about stealth platforms, just remember a couple of names. Number one, there's a J-35. That's what Shiv referred to just now. That's a platform that Pakistan is almost certainly going to get. That's already being manufactured. The Chinese are testing that off their aircraft carrier right now. It looks very similar to the F-35. Yeah. It's an easy way of remembering it. Looks. Now, you don't know what's inside.
Right.
Though some suggest that the Chinese were rather intelligent in the manner in which they got their stuff. Then there is a 6th generation platform called the J-36 and another 6th generation platform called the J-50. It's also called the JXDS. All right. Those are 6th generation platforms or 5th generation plus. That's the threat that India faces. How many stealth fighters does India operate? 0. How many stealth fighters are we going to operate in the foreseeable future, next couple of years? 0.
Yeah.
Why? Because there's not very much on the table. Our own AMCA is going to take several years to come on the line, which is why you're talking about the Su-57. Now, it is important to get, and Shiv, tell me if this is what we should be doing now, get into the pros and the cons of the Su-57. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Let's do that.
So I'm going to bring up a few topics and then, maybe we can talk a little bit about that. So if we look at the Su-57, let's talk about 3 good things about the Su-57 and 3 bad things about the Su-57. Number one, it has ultimately a super cruise capability. In other words, being able to fly above the speed of Mach without using afterburners, which requires a great deal of fuel. Now, the words I use were important. It ultimately will have that capability. Yeah. It's not believed to have it right now because the engine which it operates, the AL-41, which is an updated version of the AL-31, which we operate on our Sukhoi 30, is unlikely to give it the ability to sustain super cruise for any meaningful period of time, if at all.
Yeah.
There is an incredible piece of work called the Izdeliye 30. That is the next generation of engine which the Russians have been tinkering around with for a great deal of time. It's not achieved its potential. It's still being tested. That would up the thrust of an individual engine, of an engine which could go on to the Su-57 from 30,000 pounds of thrust to 35,000 pounds of thrust, spread over 2 engines. If you've got 10,000 more pounds of thrust, then, it takes it into a different capability operation-wise. Advanced avionics and sensor fusion. It has a radar called the NO36 by AMCA. It offers 360-degree surveillance. It is similar in a sense to what the J-35, to what the American F-35 does.
Yeah.
But it's not believed to have that same level of sensor fusion by a long shot. The basic...
No comparison in terms of the...
It's not seen to be anywhere close to the ASA on board the F-35. It does have an internal weapons bay, which is large. The F-35's internal weapons bay, and I would stand corrected on this, but I believe is smaller than that on the Su-57. If you want to operate a stealth fighter, then there's no point in slaying stuff off its wings, which makes it instantly...
It's got to be inside.
Stealthy. It has to be inside.
Yeah.
So the internal weapons carriage of the Su-57 is larger. This is particularly significant because you want it to carry at least 4 R-37 missiles. This is the newest generation of Russian air-to-air missile flying out to 250, 300 kilometers. Why do we need that? Need that because we've got that threat of that Chinese PL-15, which was fired at extreme ranges by Pakistan Air Force aircraft, J-10 aircraft, which are non-stealthy, at us during Op Sindoor. Those are a couple of design features. It also has an extended operational range, which is believed to be higher than that of even the American F-22. Now, that's good news. If you've got a plane which can fly, 1,500 to 2,500 kilometers, depending on the configuration, that's good. Negative aspects, suboptimal stealth performance.
Now, I want to stop you on that point for just a moment because suboptimal stealth performance as a drawback in a stealth aircraft is everything.
Yeah, it
is everything. We've seen the pictures. We've seen the pictures that mostly the Americans have put out where, in a head-on shot off the Su-57, you can see the turbine blades, which is basically kryptonite when it comes to stealth.
Yeah.
There's nothing friendlier to radar than that. So tell us about what this suboptimal stealth means. Is it really a piece of crap when it comes to stealth as the Americans would like the world to
words
be.
like that.
In a podcast, we can say crap. So I'm going to say crap.
It's not television.
Yeah. We can also say, but yeah, we can't say crap. We can say crap.
We could keep talking about what words we can use.
Yeah.
And we can sort of push the trend.
We've said, since Vishnu and I are both from television, we're very wary of the words we can use. That's the reason why we're like two kids on a playground right now. But yeah, Vishnu, suboptimal stealth. Is it crap? Is it not crap?
So radar
or not as crappy as the Americans say it is.
So the radar cross section is estimated to be 0.1 to 1 meter square in the frontal arc, which makes it comparable to 4.5 generation fighters like the Rafale. Now, where did I get these numbers?
Oh, that's crap.
The Rafale is a pretty stealthy plane.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is
they even sell it as a stealthy plane.
It is distinctly stealthy. Look, if you look at the way it's been designed front on, it has a shape which is distinctly stealthy. Nobody will talk about the paint coating and stuff.
I remember the Rafale marketing campaign where they had it head on against the F-35 and said, do you really want to spend so much money when you can get a Rafale with the same amount of stealth? I remember that. This was a few years ago, but yeah, go on.
They've been marketing the Rafale as well as a counter to the F-35 in European markets as well.
Yeah.
Mind you, the Gripen chaps have been doing the same with the Gripen E, in the market for Canada. They're fighting it out against the F-35. However, I think the problem with the stealth characteristics of the Su-57 is not so much the frontal quadrant, but it's in the back because it doesn't have, it's got an exposed engine face in the front, but it's also got an exposed set of afterburners in the back.
Yeah.
The nozzles itself are not stealthy. It's not like the F-35 or I should say the F-22.
They look like fourth generation nozzles.
So it's just bare bones. It's like any other aircraft. Mind you, it's not in many. Even that's also the case with the Chinese J-20. They're only working now on making the rear quadrant to be stealthy as well. That's difficult. It adds weight. There are people who say that, does it really truly need to be an all-aspect stealth like the B-2, which was, or the F-117, or the F-22, which is very, very stealthy indeed, but it's not. All right. Yeah. And so therefore, if it's not stealthy, and if it's in the range of stealth of, let us say, the Rafale, and nobody will tell you the exact stealth capabilities, or nobody will do.
Then why do we need it at all?
The Rafale probably is better avionics-wise. It carries more weaponry. It's got very robust range. The Indian Air Force loves it. And they will be upgraded.
And the Indian Air Force chief said 114 Rafale is an option today. And in his press conference, and he said that's our first preference because they would be the easiest to absorb, which stands to reason.
The Indian Air Force loves its French planes. Yeah. I mean, from the Mystère, from the Ouragan to the Mystère to the Jaguar to the Alizé to the Mirage 2000 and now to the Rafale. Yeah. We've had this incredible history of French aircraft. And these are all phenomenal French aircraft. I mean, they are super expensive, super serviceable. If the Indian Air Force chief has said that we want this, then they want it.
Does the Indian Air Force not want to, under any manageable circumstances, choose another Russian fighter? Is that part of it? Because this has been said off and on in a kind of anecdotal way through the years, where the entire MMRCA, the point of it was to move away from Russian fighters. There was, of course, this entire Mirage aspect as well. But, if they can help it, they don't want to choose another.
What they're not going to say, and I'm going to say it here. What they're not trying to say is that this is a backup to the AMCA.
That it is. It's a stopgap.
No, it's not a stopgap.
They don't. Wait.
If the AMCA is a flop show.
Let me see if I can interpret what you're saying before you say it.
Straight.
You'll say it straight. Are you saying that the Air Force doesn't trust what's being promised of the AMCA in terms of capability and delivery timelines, and therefore this is a safety net?
Yeah. I mean, nobody in the Air Force is going to say that, but I do believe that they need to have a backup in terms of capability to the AMCA if it doesn't deliver as promised. What has the Air Force chief said as far as AMCA is concerned? He said that when your future platforms come online, they need to be of the relevant generation.
Yeah.
They don't want another Tejas.
Yeah.
Great little plane, but outdated.
He had a word about that in today's press conference.
You need to have a plane which is of a particular current generation. The AMCA, you're talking about 2035. After having sorted through prototypes, which now private companies are going to get into, they're going to be assessed, they're going to build prototypes, 50,000 crores, split across a couple of two companies which are shortlisted. One of them, perhaps both, will get the contract to build it, then everything is good. There are thousands of systems on board that aircraft which have to be tested. In fact, here's the key part. They're going to roll out AMCA in 2028.
Yeah.
You know what rolling it out means, right? The front wheel is attached to a tow truck and it's rolled out.
They let it breathe.
People are gonna look at it and say, we have arrived.
Yeah.
It's it. Pakistan, it's over.
Yeah.
Not quite. Because by the time all the subsystems, and this is what the ADA chief told me just a couple of days back, and he's the guy developing the AMCA. The key point over here is that it's going to take 5 years, best case scenario, for all of those systems to be certified.
Of course.
And then you give it to the Air Force and say, start testing.
Yeah.
With the assumption that they'll buy it.
So are you saying that 2035?
No, but here's the point. And getting back to what I was saying, the Su-57, you need it as a backup.
Yeah.
If the AMCA fails, you've got something already online.
So but to answer the question about the Su-57, I have to clarify one.
Yeah, sure.
Are you saying that the 2035 timeline on the AMCA is also negotiable or tricky or not quite on firm ground?
As we know, everything is negotiable when it comes to Atmanirbharta.
But this is ridiculous because in 10 years from now, we may be cyborgs.
Shiv,
the world. One second. I don't want to trivialize what is a very serious issue, but the thing is, I'm a little
Shivbogs, and that's
Shivbogs. I like that. I'm a little flabbergasted right now, and I have a great deal of respect for our capability and our scientists in our laboratories. No doubt about that. But 10 years from now, the world is going to be unrecognizable. Look at what it is like right now. In 1 year, AI has changed everything. I'm just wondering what 10 years is going to be. In 10 years, all rules of engagement of normal life, forget about the military, are going to be completely different. So is that baked into, is obsolescence management something that can be, is it even possible for something like the AMCA when you're aiming at a shifting target 10 years from now?
The target is shifted. We've just invested 1,10,000 crore rupees on the Tejas Mark 1A. How many Tejas Mark 1As have entered service?
So I'm wondering, Vishnu, whether we should be looking at this at all.
No. So now you and I are going to be called import dalals.
Yeah. No. Here's the point. Before we are called import dalals, I am against the Su-57 stopgap vehemently. I am aggressively against it. I am hostile to the idea of choosing and importing another fighter. The Rafales that the Indian Air Force chief is talking about, it's a fait accompli. We've got 36 of these fighters. We anyway need a whole bunch more. As the air chief said, they're the easiest to absorb. Build the damn thing here in India and get on with it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do another episode on 4th generation or 4.5 generation fighters as long as I'm alive.
Talking about 4th generation fighters.
I am done.
No, but Shiv, we have 270 odd Sukhoi 30.
Yeah.
By the time you and I are very, very old, our grandparents, which in my case might be before you sort of get around to having your own, the Su-57 is going to be flying way longer than that.
I am frustrated and feel pain when I talk about the Su-30 and these things that we're talking about right now. I cannot imagine how much the air chief's head hurts. And he's always got that nice little smile on his face. It's incredible, but yeah, wow.
Talk about being ready for future wars today.
Yeah.
Just I think a brief statement, if not two, but that's really where it is. No, I want to go back to this point in the Su-30 MKI. The Su-30 MKI has to be upgraded. He spoke about that upgrade today. This is a plane that's going to be in service till 2050. It's got the stealth profile of a dump truck.
Yeah.
All right? You can't go away from
the Su-57 is the big daddy or the successor of
is a low visibility, low observability, stealth sort of aircraft, great aircraft. I'm willing to give it that. Does it really meet the contemporary standards? Will it ever be the best of the best? Look, I mean, the Chinese have 300 300.
J20.
300, yeah, because the last time we did an episode on stealth, I said 200, and now it turns out it's 300. Deployed, manufactured, right? Stealth aircraft of the J20 class. They're very happy with that.
Yeah.
They're now on to the 6th generation. We are working out, old technology solutions. And so the Su-57 is non-optimal. I'll just go through a couple of other points on the Su-57. I spoke about the engine as well.
Yeah.
The stealth being a problem. The engine is a problem because the Israeli, is not yet ready. There are only 20 to 30 Su-57 jets which the Russians have. That's it.
Yeah.
Compare that with hundreds of F-35s which the Americans have and their partner nations have. Now, Russia is in a bad situation. Economically, they've got a war economy going. But in terms of spending on an aircraft, developing it further, remember, India pumped in $295 million into this project and said, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because we said that we want a 2-seat variant. The Russians said they weren't willing to do that. We assessed the aircraft. We never flew it. And then we said, we better pull the plug on this, or this is going to end up being a drain on our resources, and God knows it's going to be a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
We are now, many years later, with no option, having to go back to the Russians and say, okay, look, let's have a look at this technology. So limited production and maturity of the platform itself. Some reports, and I was referring to this earlier, vulnerability to infrared detection, exposed engine nozzles. So we spoke about that as well. But let's face it,
we don't have a choice.
There is something out there called a stealth aircraft. It is a military requirement to have something with very low observability. And therefore, you have to get something like this. Just look at the threats. Look at the threat that Pakistan poses to us.
Yeah.
Which is a near peer. They are going to be getting the F-35 and the J-35.
No, but this is a pretty, again,
the Chinese stuff.
This is a crappy situation, which is that, and let me summarize it because I want the full impact of this situation to sink in for everyone, which is that India spent upwards of $200 million,
$295
million on the aircraft that would finally become the Su-57. It was called the Pakfa that time as a project name in Russia. India wasn't happy with the way it was turning out because of the number of seats, work share, etc. And it walked away from the project having spent $295 million into it. India, as a kind of philosophy, has wanted to move past Russian aircraft and look at other suppliers, French, American, whatever. India is saddled with this huge fleet of Su-30 MKI fighters, which the Russians are by the way saying, oh, if you buy the Su-57, it's a lot of commonality and it's a very similar aircraft and many parts are similar, so it won't be that much of a additional cost, which is absolutely ridiculous rubbish, because the aircraft are not the same at all and it will involve huge costs by itself. But that's okay. That's a marketing gimmick maybe. And we are once again, thanks to lack of planning, geopolitical churn, happenstance, and so much else, painted into a corner.
Yeah.
Because it looks like we are in a position or a situation, correct me if I'm wrong, Vishnu, where we have no choice but to buy an aircraft we walked away from, is suboptimal in stealth, and
suboptimal even in its avionics.
So is there really no other option?
Yeah, the option, it's not one or the other, but the option is to keep on buying more S-400s, S-500s,
which we've spoken about in a previous episode.
Keep building up on our
sharpen your air defense
of network of radars. That IACCS, the Integrated Air Force Control and Command System.
Yeah,
it's a piece of art by any standard. The way Op Sindoor was conducted through various
incredible
IACCS nodes. Nobody really talks about this, but the amount of technological cohesion that you have, the ability to command airspace and an air battle while having full control over all of your assets is something which is incredible. It's lost on most people. They have spoken about it. But you've got that, you've got radars, you've got excellent radars, and you've got state of the art.
So you basically make So
you got to hold.
In the middle of this stealth imbalance
scenario.
In the middle of this stealth imbalance where your adversaries have stealth fighters and you don't, is it an option to not have stealth fighters and simply sharpen your air defenses the way you're describing it?
It's not.
Or must we have stealth fighters?
At the moment, there is no end to manned aircraft or even unmanned aircraft, playing a role in air superiority missions.
Yeah.
And therefore, you need stealth platforms. You need to figure out a way in which you're able to counter the Chinese. It's not good enough to be able to have an air force to take on the Pakistanis, which you do have. So therefore, you need to be deploying and building a large number of stealth aircraft, several hundred of them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is a reality. They need to be involved in offensive counter-air. They need to be involved in missions potentially across the line of actual control. They need to be able to take on technology-wise what the Chinese have already developed to the two planes which I spoke to you about.
Yeah.
And it's not one or the other. And of course, by all means, get a robust surface-to-air missile network. But whether the sensors have the fidelity to pick up and reliably track, lock onto, and attack stealth platforms is something which is anybody's guess at this stage. What we do know is that the S-400 could take out missiles which fly up to Mach 5, which is that CM-400, which is incredible. Incredible, absolutely. Because nobody fires these missiles and say, okay, I'm not going to test consistently.
If the situation changes, and right now we're talking about India and China cooling things down between them. Operation Sindoor has happened, which will presumably serve as a deterrent for at least a while between the two countries. Of course, you've got this big churn between India and the United States. Doesn't all of this provide India a bit of latitude to take a decision, or are we going to have to rush into, procuring these stealth fighters from Russia or wherever else? Because there are no other options.
I'm intrigued by your statement that Op Sindoor is a deterrent. I'm intrigued by that statement because, unfortunately, given the nature of the threat, I do believe that you can't rule out future terrorist attacks by Pakistan. Or even more insidious attacks. And then what happens? Remember what the army chief said today. His most direct remarks, where he said that, we'll hit Pakistan wherever, we'll
wipe them off the map.
Geography, this, that, and the other. The Air Force chief saying that if terrorists relocate to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, we'll hit them there as well. This is all in anticipation, in a sense, or a recognition of the fact that the Pakistan threat hasn't gone away.
Yeah.
Who controls Pakistan is a larger story, right? And therefore, who controls this terrorist threat it's this huge gray zone. You've got terrorist institutions. The Pakistan army and the Pakistan government is one large institution, in a sense. That's the basis on which Pakistan exists. So therefore, I'm not sure this is a deterrent. It's just a pause where Pakistan has been given a sharp and heavy lesson.
Yeah.
But they are smart. Let's be very clear about it.
Yeah.
Very capable.
That's right.
And losses will happen. Right? They've happened in the past. They may happen once again. And we have to be ready for that.
Yeah, the rules of engagement have changed. And, what their definition is will define what India's response is. But coming back once again to the to the last part of this podcast, which is the Su-57. Given that Trump has warned India so directly about procuring Russian weapons, even if we were to entertain this pitch from the Russians, and this is coming straight from Putin, obviously, because we can be sure that when he comes in December, there's going to be all this talk about the S-400 and the S-500. I'm sure the Su-57 will even get a mention there. It can't just happen, can it? I mean, India does still walk a tightrope between the US and Russia. Trump's in office for the next 3 years, or 3.5 years. It can't happen in the foreseeable future. Sure, such things take time, but there's also pressure on India to commit one way or the other as far as stealth fighters are concerned. So does India just wait and watch, let this thing stew for a while? Because buying Russian fighters while you've got a man like Trump holding a sword over your head can't be an easy thing to think about.
I don't think India beyond a point is going to give up on our autonomy. I think we face threats which America is all too aware of. I mean, America is our strategic partner. They see India as a bulwark against China. They know the aircraft the Chinese operate better than anybody else. And therefore, if we are, going to be acquiring Russian aircraft because they won't give us the F-35, then that's their problem. We never said no to the F-35, but it's not going to come at the expense of other systems which have worked for us.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is something that India will need to look at very closely. I think the way that this is going to work is if India gets Su-57s in a finite period of time. We are not looking to get Su-57s 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Is Russia in a position to do that?
Is Russia in a position?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Do they have a hotline? Do they have a production?
Where are they going to build these? Okay. Yeah. I mean, they have plants in Irkutsk and places like that, right?
Yeah.
Do they have the manufacturing capacity to do that? Are they going to transfer this all to India? Where are the manufacturing lines in India? Who's going to be able to actually do that? What about imbibing all the technology? Then we say that, we want a large indigenous content because it fulfills our Atmanirbharta ideals. Do we have the ecosystem to actually be able to do this in the manner that we do? Who's going to build all the components? The Russians will want the export of Russian components.
Yes.
This takes a huge amount of time. We haven't even had pilots who've flown the Su-57.
This is probably the most important thing in this episode, that we've been looking at the Su-57 as a kind of quick fix stopgap that we can exercise because the AMCA is so delayed. But what you're saying is alarming. You're saying, wait a minute, it may not be a stopgap by itself, because the stopgap itself could take a huge amount of time and has a lot of complexities.
If they go ahead and they sign up right away,
I'm very happy to hear this. I have to say,
from the Russians on delivery.
Yeah.
And transfer of technology and a finite roadmap, then that's one thing. It's to a suboptimal solution.
Yeah.
But if that's not there, then we shouldn't get going for this at all. It's just a colossal waste of money.
So high cost, no real clarity on production and timelines, suboptimal stealth. Once again, buying aircraft from a country that you sort of philosophically wanted to move away from.
In some areas.
Saddled with an aircraft that doesn't have the best avionics in its class. So it's happy days are here again for the Indian Air Force.
And to top it off, we've retired the MiG-21 because that was always available to us for the next 30 years if we want.
I am just so sorry that this episode is dropping on Indian Air Force Day week. But it is what it is, right? We talk about the reality, what's and all here on Control All Defense. We don't sugarcoat the truth. And the Indian Air Force knows, because of the conversations that Vishnu and I have as a result of this podcast with the Indian Air Force persons serving and retired, that we're the only ones calling it out. And I think it's important that we do, because stakeholders, government...
You can't sugarcoat stuff like this.
But this is particularly crappy, Vishnu. This is a particularly crappy situation in a year when the Indian military has done so incredibly well, particularly the Indian Air Force, to be saddled with this strategic dilemma over pieces of equipment is a ridiculous manifestation of, the compounding effects of years and years and years of
inefficiency.
Of inefficiency, lack of planning, postponement, obfuscation. I really feel for Air Chief Marshal AP Singh. I don't think he needs our empathy or sympathy, because he's a tiger, he's a war fighter. He's shown the world what India and the Indian Air Force can do. So he definitely doesn't need our empathy or sympathy, but he still has it, because what an incredibly difficult job. Wow. To be having to take these decisions, fight with what you have, and then have to go to sleep every night wondering what that next big decision is going to be. So all I can say is, Vishnu, this was fun. Not so much fun for the Indian Air Force, but we still wish them an incredible Air Force Day and thank them for their service. All of them, the men, women, on the ground, in the air.
And the veterans.
And the veterans as well. What a fabulous year you've given all of us. So much to look at, so much to be proud of, so much to think about. Vishnu was at the MiG-21 retirement ceremony, so he's been, up close with these wonderful jets as well. And we've got a lot more lined up on the Air Force coming up on this podcast, Vishnu.
All right. Well, as always, from Shiv, me, Anvati, our camera persons, and all of us over here, goodbye. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.